Crushed, disappointed, and confused. Those are just some of the words Hispanic advisors to Trump are using to describe their response to the Republican nominee's apparent softening, then toughening on immigration. This follows Trump's highly anticipated speech on the issue Wednesday night, where he definitively ruled out a pathway to legalization for people currently living in the country illegally, among other hardline proposals. With me now from Washington is roll call columnist Jon Allen. Jon, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Less than a day after that speech, Trump said again there would be, quote, quite a bit of softening on immigration policies. Why is he using all these mixed messages on this issue?
His campaign's like one big shruggy emoji on immigration right now.
I like that.
Look, I think he's trying to walk this incredible tightrope between people who want to see immigrants to the United States, particularly Latino immigrants to the United States, deported en masse to be incarcerated, and those who believe that that's probably not the right solution or a plausible solution. Right now, he's still trying to put the Republican Party back together on immigration. He's not even at a place where he could start to reach out beyond the Republican Party or beyond conservatives on immigration. So I think he's trying to walk a tightrope, and he's falling off of both sides of it every day.
It certainly seems that way. I want to ask you about, too, Trump is set to visit a black church in Detroit, Michigan tomorrow during a time when he's attempting to court minority voters, so it seems. But according to the New York Times, advisors have given him a script of what to say during this particular visit. Is this the right approach, do you think, for community outreach in this case?
When you know all the questions in advance and you've come up with a script for the answers in advance, it's not really an interview.
Right?
But right. I mean, you know, the two sides there are pretty much done. Look, I think Donald Trump is just trying to show that he can walk into a black church and not get booed down and not say something that further alienates minorities, and not just minorities and not just African Americans, but also white voters who don't want to be associated with somebody who is seen as bigoted. And I think that the perception of Donald Trump is certainly that way among most minority groups and among a lot of white Americans as well.
Well, it seems, as particularly when you look at this demographic historically where he's going, they vote Democratic. So with what you're talking about in that statistic, it seems like this is more about the optics versus actual voter turnout for Trump in this case.
I don't think Donald Trump's gonna do a whole lot better with African Americans than any of the previous Republican candidates in the last couple of cycles, and my guess is he will do significantly worse. In a lot of polls, he's basically within the margin of error of 0 with the African American community.
So one thing that's come up here in terms of voting that's interesting, a recent poll shows that many Americans will cast votes based on fear. That's a word that keeps coming up with really both candidates, fear, rather than excitement for their own this November. What does this say, do you think, about the current cycle that we're living through right now?
I think it's a very ugly cycle. Americans are angry, but they're angry for different reasons. They dislike the two candidates
polarly
for
different reasons.
Right,
yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not like it's one thing to say the electorate is angry and they want change, but it's another to look a little bit deeper and realize that they don't want change in the same direction. So really, what we see with our candidates is at some level a reflection of our electorate, that we are a divided nation, and we have been in most recent elections, and perhaps something will break free over the next couple of months, but we still look like a pretty divided and relatively evenly divided nation at the moment.
Well, I have to tell you, I recently covered the Olympic Games in Brazil, and it is the #1 question I got from everyone on both sides of what is going on in the United States. In terms of...
I feel for you. You went to Brazil to the Olympics and you had to think about American politics?
I did the whole time. That's all people wanted to talk about. I have to tell you, that's all they wanted to talk about. And I mean, we're talking about it every day. I mean, it's all everybody's talking about.
I just wanted to watch swimming.
Yes, and we saw how that kind of ended in the end too, right? Then we had something else to talk about with the gas station and Ryan Lochte. But back to the poll, I want to talk about 54% of likely voters in the poll I was just talking about. In terms of fear, that same poll found that 54% of likely voters think that the Clintons didn't do enough to prevent conflict of interest with donations to the Clinton Foundation. Do you think this is going to hurt Clinton at the ballot box this November, or is this more of a public image issue for her moving forward? Does it affect the people who are likely to vote for her?
Look, the American people ought to be able to have confidence that their president isn't going to be unduly influenced by people who have donated to her or to her family or to her family's foundation. I think there are legitimate questions about whether people should have confidence in that right now, and I don't think Hillary Clinton has done enough to explain to the public why she can take large amounts of money, millions and millions of dollars from people with interest before the U.S. government for the foundation, why her husband can do that as well. And not be influenced by it. And I think that's something she's going to have to articulate, not just in terms of this campaign itself, but if she wins the presidency, in order for people to have that faith in the integrity of the office. So it is an important issue, both electorally speaking. It goes to this question of whether she's secretive or hiding something. And look, I think, as the Clinton folks make the point often, the Clinton Global Initiative and the Clinton Foundation have done a lot of good work around the world. That story is not being told effectively right now.
Okay, Jon Allen in Washington, thank you so much for being with us.
Take care, Jamie.